Good afternoon and happy day after the election. Boy, I think we're all happy that that's behind us now. And welcome to another edition of RecruitMilitary Live, a continuing series of live broadcasts covering all things military transition, veteran employment, mil-spouse employment, and much, much more. My name is Lucas Connolly, retired U.S. Army officer and former TAP program manager, here to share with you the ins and outs of navigating the turbulent waters of civilian employment. If you're in search of meaningful employment, then you're in the right place. Please visit rmvets.com/live to learn more. Okay, let's roll. Serving in the military means learning new skills and applying them in a mission of defending the American people and her interests abroad. Upon separation from active service, many veterans struggle to find their niche, that place in the workforce where they can apply their skills or find their next civilian career, their new career. If you're interested in hearing just one example of how a veteran can make the leap using the skills that he's acquired during military service for career success without abandoning everything he'd learned in uniform, well, you're in the right place. Our guest today has done an amazing job of transitioning from the military service to a career in the civilian sector and employing the skills he used to make it successful. Our guest today started his career in the United States Marine Corps as a geospatial analyst before going through an elite selection process and joining Special Operations Command. He employed cutting-edge targeting methodologies and intelligence collection methods to enable America's very best to take the fight to our nation's enemies overseas. Following his military career, he transitioned to a civilian career, applying the skills he learned in the military successfully in the civilian sector. Today, he is Senior Vice President of Sales for ZeroEyes, a company that is creating and fielding AI-based weapons detection systems designed to prevent and mitigate gun violence. And I think we'd all like to see that happen. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. James J.T. Wilkins to the show. J.T., welcome.
Hey, Lucas, how are you?
Hey, thanks for taking the time out of your day to be with us. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Glad to be here.
Okay, folks, now that you know who we are, we'd like to hear who you are, all your viewers out there in internet land. Hit that chat window. Let us know where you're watching from, who you are, who you're with, who you served with, what your status is. If you've got questions, comments, issues, concerns, or just plain gripes, go ahead and drop them in the chat, and time allowing, we'll address it. Okay, JT, we are wheels up. Now, you and I have a common contact, at least if only briefly, and that's Herb Thompson. When I had conversations with him about military transition, one of the things he told me was, the more stickers you have in the back window of your truck, probably the harder your transition is going to be. And I think what he was getting at was that definition of self and higher purpose. Do you think you can expound on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So as someone that joined the military straight out of high school, I was 18 years old, joined the Marine Corps, all ready to rock and roll. That's all I knew for, the course of my service was, who I was as I progressed through the ranks and then, capped off my career as a gunnery sergeant. I think what Herb's alluding to here is that you got to figure out, who is your first name? Who is JT when you're on the backside of your transition? What do you want to be? Going back to your likes, wants, and desires, your hobbies, the things that you enjoy, and then applying that towards what does your next step in life look like? What do you want to do from an employment perspective? You have such an amazing opportunity in the military that you know well ahead of time that the time is coming for the most part. I think that your military service is ending at some point. And so the more that you can do on the front end to prepare yourself for that eventual transition, both from a professional standpoint, but then also a personal and an emotional standpoint, the better off that you're going to be. So again, I think that the folks that have the stickered up, car or truck or things like that, I agree with Herb. I think you got to try to reduce your personality around the military and figure out who you are. And that's not to say that you shouldn't be proud of your service, because you absolutely should be. It shouldn't be your entire personality, I guess is the best way to say it.
And it's interesting too, because, I talk to a lot of veterans and I said, I hear them say, I wish I'd taken more pictures, and during my military service, I stay away from the cheesy hey, look at me with the 50 cal rifle. Somebody take my picture, And now I look back and I say, wow, maybe I should have taken some more of those photos, because I don't have any of that cheeseball stuff laying around anymore.
And you're absolutely right. I think about that all the time. I go back to every once in a while, our company will put out something for the veterans in the organization. It's like, go find a picture of you back in uniform. And so, I got to search through, right? Just because at the time it's, hey, we didn't take a lot of photos. Nor was I the big selfie guy either. So you gotta try to go through the Rolodex and see who's got what and find what you can. But yeah, definitely. I certainly wish I took more photos throughout my military service.
Now, you made mention about planning for your transition. And I did understand from our conversation that you did a very smart thing. You started planning for your transition about 18 months out. Very forward thinking. Somebody gave you some solid advice there. When we spoke, you mentioned that you did more than 200 informational interviews. That's just an astonishing amount. Some short, some long. Now, as an intelligence professional, can you describe how you kind of applied that intelligence gathering methodology or targeting methodology to your process of interviewing and learning about the civilian environment well in advance of your separation?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was fortunate to just kind of had an opportunity presented itself to make the decision if I wanted to stay or if I wanted to go. And I made the decision that it was the best thing for my family and I to go. Luckily, that presented itself well ahead of time. It allowed me to start backwards planning into my transition and just put myself out there to learn as much as I can from those who had done it. And I think the most important thing that I learned through that process was what I didn't want to do. But from a military perspective, and what I learned as an intelligence professional, as a targeting professional, was really, it's no real different than what you learn from intelligence preparation of the battlefield perspective, or a targeting methodology for F3EA. You're ultimately looking for what's out there, right? That's step one. What's even available for me to get after? Let me try to sight in on the potential next target that's in the environment. Know what opportunities and threats are out there, and then once you start kind of dialing in the broad scope opportunities that exist in the marketplace for transitioning service members, we're kind of moving from that find over to that fix. When we talk about that F3EA methodology, you start looking at, okay, well, here's the things that I think I might want to do based on talking to all these people about the things that I kind of figured out I didn't want to do. Initially I had my mind set on, I think I want to go into, the finance sector, and I want to do, corporate banking and those types of things. And the more and more I peeled back the layers on those things, the more and more I was like, man, that is not the world for me. That is not where I want to go. That is not where I want to end up. And that's my opinion. It just didn't fit what I wanted to do in my future and the culture that I wanted to work in on a consistent basis. So I kind of scratched that one off the list, and so I started fixing more into the things that I thought I could enjoy more on the backside of my military service. And finally landed on a few things based on really doing, kind of that analysis of what's going to meet both my personal expectations, the goals that I've set for myself when I get out of the military, and then the environment based on the feedback that I've gotten through talking to a whole bunch of different people. And so those informational interviews were absolutely critical throughout that process. I quite literally would jump on LinkedIn and I would find a company that I'm interested in. I would look for a veteran that might be in that company. So you can type in, Amazon, and then you type in second company or previous company, and it could be the Marine Corps, and then generally you're going to find 10 or 12 different people on there that pop right up. And if they're in the geographic area that you want to go with, that's maybe where you should start. And I simply asked them, hey, look, John, I saw that you were working at Amazon, saw that you're a veteran. I'm on the path of my transition right now. I'm trying to learn a little bit more about Amazon. And I'd love to pick your brain a little bit about it and try to learn a little bit more about what your day-to-day looks like. And I think I had probably a 95% return rate on that, where people are like, yeah, hey, absolutely. Let's jump on and chat. You just got to put yourself out there a little bit throughout that process and have a little bit of a methodology for the madness, I guess.
And it's a deliberate process. And I love the glowing optimism of many of our veterans say, well, I'm not worried about it. I know I'll find a job. No, you're going to have to go out and find a job. And when I say find, like, okay, I found a quarter on the sidewalk. That's luck. That's not the kind of find. You need to go out and actively go out, search, find those contacts, find those people. And for those who are not familiar with the targeting methodology that JT is talking about, it's find, fix, finish. All right. Evaluate, assess, and disseminate. F3EAD. So what he's talking about is applying a targeting methodology or an intelligence gathering methodology to informational interviews to refine his own target search or career search, which I think is absolutely genius. So, but you got to, just like you said, you got to put yourself out there. Nobody's coming knocking on your door saying, hey, we hear you're getting out in a couple of months. Would you like to come work for us? That probably didn't happen to you much.
Yeah, that's never going to happen, right? You get exactly what you put into it. And so, if you're a veteran and you're 6, 8, 12 months out right now, and you're getting started here, and your expectation is the TAP class is going to be what is what gets you across the finish line. It's just not. That's going to give you the basics for how to transition, and just like anything else, we want to be the best at the basics in the military. But the more advanced skills are how you really achieve the next level. When you leave the service, I think one thing in the service, right, is your rank structure is built out. You've got kind of a rank and file model of how you're going to progress through the ranks. If you do these things, you achieve these key billets, you're going to achieve 05, you're going to achieve E9, whatever that might look like over the course of your 15, 20-year military career. In the civilian sector, it's not that way. It's 100% based on performance. And it's, it can start from day one that you put yourself out there. And if you lean in and you work hard and your performance shows, you're gonna do well. So it's super exciting to be on this side of it, where you're charting your own path and you're not hindered by the rank structure promotion timelines. So that's another thing to look at.
Yeah, I tell some people, in the military, you are given a very structured, program for advancement. For the most part, you're going to do this job at this rank, this job at this rank, and as long as you don't mess up, you're going to keep moving up. Some would say it's like climbing a ladder, or climbing a flight of stairs. Whereas out here in the civilian world, it's more like land nav. Almost nothing is a straight line, and there's always an obstacle in the path and some way to get around, get over, get through. But you've got to, like you said, chart your own course and find your own way to success. Because once you step out the door of Fort wherever and you got that DD 214 in your pocket, you no longer have a career counselor, a reenlistment NCO, a non-commissioned officer who's your mentor on a day-to-day basis. You got to kind of figure that stuff out on your own. Now, you did mention briefly in one of our conversations, mentorship. Did you have the benefit of a mentor? And if so, where'd that person come from?
Yeah. So I think it's a mixture of a couple of different things. So I certainly had a mentor. I went through a number of the different programs that were available. American Corporate Partners was absolutely phenomenal for me to jump in with. I had a business executive that I jumped on with twice a week. We'd kind of look at the pathway to my transition and the things that I should be learning and the language that I should be using and shifting gears from that military terminology to business terminology and kind of changing my vocabulary a little bit to adapt to that new environment. So that was a great path for me. But then being able to build meaningful relationships through those informational interviews were, such a game changer. A lot of those conversations wouldn't stop at the 15, 20-minute mark that we'd get off the phone. They would be meaningful, longer-term relationships that I'd be able to bounce stuff off of these guys, folks that were willing to bend over backwards to help me get in the door to these different organizations because I didn't ask them for a job. I was asking them for their time and their experience, and then hopefully building a relationship in that. Maybe in someday it would turn into something, and if not, at least it would be building a really solid network that I can lean on for advice in the future.
Awesome. Yeah, they say your network is your net worth. The more people you know, what I'd like to tell people, they used to say it's who you know. They still say that.
Oh yeah.
So we're going to talk for a minute about skills that you picked up in the military that have served you well in the civilian sector. I think people really underestimate, a lot of transitioning service members underestimate the value of the things that they've learned in the military. Now let's take sales, for example. Your current role is in sales, and you alluded in our earlier conversation how most people, a lot of folks, I should say, they don't think about sales in a way that a lot of military folks, veterans coming out, they hear sales and they go, no, I can't do that. But I think you've found a way to pick up some of the skills that you learned in the military and apply those against sales. Could you describe that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll be the first one to tell you that I never saw myself going into sales, and I think I fit very much into the category of most veterans that hear the word sales and kind of get turned off a little bit from heading that direction, because your idea there is the used car slimy sales guy that's trying to put you into a clunker, just to make his next commission or hit his quota for the month. When I peeled back the layers and I really found what I was doing or what I could do in that environment, what I found is that I'm essentially a consultant that is a trusted advisor to a client that's trying to achieve a certain objective for themselves in the future. So as the head of sales here at ZeroEyes, that role is very much ensuring that we're providing the highest level quality service to our clients against the mission that I think most people can get behind. When I look at veterans and going into tech sales or B2B sales, I think it's a great fit for most. A lot of people don't realize that from an early age in the military, you're given a podium. But in most cases, E3s, E4s, you're doing some type of small unit leadership at a very early level. You're communicating with your troops. You're communicating with your junior service members, and you're having to execute based on commander's intent and the orders that are provided down, with little to no guidance outside of just basically, hey, go get this done. One of my favorite terms for military guys, and I think which is a superpower, is your ability to figure it out and be with that guidance. And I really do believe as military members that figure it out is their superpower, because you've been handed a hard problem. You've dealt with a lot of hard throughout your career. If you went through boot camp, you went through something hard. And so I think everybody that serves can at least level with that. And then others go to combat, others do other things that are hard throughout their career. And so you're overcoming that. But it's specifically for sales, your ability to communicate is the number one most important thing that you can do as a B2B salesperson or a tech person. The greatest salespeople are storytellers.
Yes.
Some of the greatest storytellers come from veterans and the community that they come out of. And if you can shift some of the experiences that you had as a military service member in the wide, vast, very diverse experiences that we get as military service members, and apply that specifically to the job, even if you don't meet that direct job description, but you can tell a story about how it kind of fits into that mold. And I can tell you that you're probably going to have a good discussion with your hiring manager or the person that you're working through in that job discussion. So again, looking back at the sales component, if you apply that same targeting methodology to your clients, where you're looking out and saying, hey, I got to build my funnel. I got to prospect out to build a pipeline that's going to allow me to achieve my quota in the future. So you're back into that fine perspective. Once you fix on a specific target or a specific person or business that you want to work with, you're really starting to develop out all of the things that need to happen there. So you're identifying, do I have the right person? Have I found a champion? Do I know who the economic buyer is, the person that actually can sign the purchase order or the agreement? And it's no different than what you've been taught through the military. Just it's shaped in a different way. And the finish is just a different intent based on the objective, right? In the military, might have been blowing something up. Well, in this case, it's closing a sale, and you're that much closer to quota, and you might put a commission in your pocket. So it's just, you got to just shift your mindset a little bit, and look at the way that you've been taught something and apply it in a different way.
Yeah, and if you've ever found yourself in a position where you're communicating an unpopular set of instructions to your team, and you have to provide that purpose, direction, motivation, then and understand overcoming objections, because no matter what you're doing, is somebody in that formation is going to object, then you've probably inadvertently learned the skills of communicating value, selling the ether, and closing the sale. So that's absolutely. So folks out there, if you're getting out of the military and you've never thought about sales, take another look at it, because it just might be your next career. Now, let's take a look at another thing too. The high performance teams. It's no news to anybody that in the soft community in particular, they absolutely live, breathe, and potentially die around the idea of having a high performance team. You've no doubt at this point had to build, coach, teach, mentor, staff teams within your own organization. Can you talk a little bit about how the talent management, talent acquisition methodologies within the soft community kind of translate to creating a high performance team in your organization?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think one of the things that the community does very well is assess the individual that's coming into the organization, and they hire and train, or they hire based on, or bring you in through that selection process based on your ability to fit into the organizational culture more than anything else. If you have, that fit and the trust, that's probably the number one thing that's going to get you in the door to some of those organizations. I flipped that into the way that I look at hiring for my team. So I actually just wrapped up hiring 3 different people. And the number one thing that I was looking for was the cultural fit and the trainability / competence to be able to learn this job. What I found throughout my time here as the head of sales is that the guys traditionally that come with 10 or 15 years of sales experience have not done as well as the veterans that I pulled into this role that have that figure it out mindset and are just willing to roll up their sleeves, grind, and get it done. Because it's a totally different environment than anything that your traditional account executive has ever been accustomed to. So it's really interesting when we bring people in the door, and you can tell immediately, like, this person has high confidence or high competence and high trust, and the folks that are on the other end of the spectrum that might have the amazing resume, but when I talk to them, I just immediately within 2 minutes, I know that this isn't going to be the person that I can bring into this organization.
Yeah, it makes absolute sense. And my own company, it was a very similar thing. When you find great people and give them the chance to grow, they'll return 110%, no doubt. But yeah, you can train someone to do a task, to follow a sales methodology, to build their business. But knowing that they're going to do well without direct supervision, that you can trust them, that with your company name, that's huge. So I can appreciate that. Let's see. One of the things you mentioned as well in our last conversation was, and hopefully I got the quote right. I underestimated the need to switch from a military mindset to a civilian mindset. This is kind of the opposite of carrying skills with you. This is more abandoning some things and learning to adapt, I think. Could you expound on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was fortunate to have the time that I had during my transition process to figure out the professional side of what I wanted to do next, be able to apply the skills that I had gained in the community over the course of my military career, put together this great resume, have all these informational interviews. And then I left the service, and I, kind of took that same mindset in the service out of the service. Within about a year of that, I found myself trying to figure out like my sense of purpose and mission in my personal life, and and even my professional life as well. In the military, we're given the close with and destroy the enemy, right? That's your mission at the end of the day. Is our goal is to fight and win America's wars. And it's a noble mission that everybody signs on to to do when you go in the military. When you leave the military, you leave that behind. You leave that sense of mission behind, and you have to prepare yourself for what that does to you from a psychological perspective. And for me, my first career, I certainly fit into the category of military service members that leave their first job within the first 18 months of them leaving service. I went and worked for a small defense startup. I enjoyed myself there for a while, but what I found was that I was actually lacking a sense of purpose and mission in that environment. I needed to find something that fulfilled that need for me. And once I moved over to ZeroEyes, it completely changed for me from a professional perspective. But most importantly, I had to take away that mindset of, Gunnery Sergeant Wilkins and become JT again, and shed a little bit of that and figure out exactly who I wanted to be outside the military.
Question from the audience, Jacqueline Cavers. She asks, what were the challenges, if anything, that you noticed as you adapted to the civilian workplace? Is there anything that jumps out at you? Like, I really had to stop doing this, or there was a change that really got me in the gut every time I thought about it. Anything jump off the top of your head?
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, what you have to remember is that no matter how great the culture of the environment that you're going into, at the end of the day, for the most part, if you're entering into a private company, it's a for-profit organization. And that company has a profit and loss statement that it operates against. And so you have to take the mindset into that, knowing that you either produce or you're going to have to go find employment somewhere else. And so you got to put that in the back of your mind that's kind of always there, but not to the extent that it gives you anxiety on a day-to-day basis, right? It's just kind of that good little nudge and push, and something that you should probably keep in your back pocket. I would say one to add to that a little bit, your peers in these environments as well are certainly heading down the direction of hey, we're all rowing in the same boat towards the same direction, but we're all very different from one another, and we all have our personal objectives that we're trying to get to. And so it's just something you got to keep in your back pocket. And again, if you go to an organization that has great culture, that's going to be less of an issue for you in the future. If you go to somewhere that's a bit more cutthroat, that's something you got to be considerate of.
Absolutely. If you're not making money for an organization, why are you there? And if this is a P&L environment, you get hired not because of your good looks and your distinguished jawline and your charm. You're there to help make money for the company. So, and I've been asked this on a number of occasions. Hey, that's a great idea. How do we monetize it? Great ideas are good. Profitable ideas are even better.
That's exactly right.
I think the one thing that I tripped up on was calling my boss sir. It seems like a small thing, I know, but I must have called my first boss sir for like 6 months before he started. He said, look, everybody calls me Tom. Nobody calls me sir. Stop calling me sir. It makes you sound stupid. I said, hey, you got it, boss. Tom, it just felt weird.
Yeah. I think that goes back to that like military jargon, right? I think one of the number one things that you can do to help yourself on the way out of the military is change your vocabulary. Go take a couple of courses somewhere. I started, and I'll be the first one to admit to you, I've not completed it yet, but I got about 65% of the way through my MBA. And the number one thing that my MBA has taught me is not something from like, how to run a business. But what it has done is given me a vocabulary and know where to go look for the information that I need to go capture. And so if you can do anything, I think the vocabulary is going to be such a huge difference leaving the military. And what you'll find is when you enter the corporate sector, you'll have a whole new list of acronyms you have to learn, and you don't want to confuse those.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, as we wind down the half hour, just one last question before we close out. Same question I ask of all my guests. Given the opportunity to give just one piece of advice to a service member who's about to hang up their boots, what would that one piece of advice be? Yeah,
start as early as you can, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Ask for the meeting, ask for the opportunity. The people that want it bad enough are going to be the ones that ultimately are overt about what they're looking for in the next chapter here. So the more that you can figure out what it is that you want to do and then go capture that, the better off that you're going to be. And again, just be overt through that process. Show them that you want it, and explain how you're going to you're going to add value in that organization.
Absolutely. Be your own advocate. JT, before we sign off, can you tell us just a little bit about what you're doing with ZeroEyes?
Yeah, absolutely. So ZeroEyes is a software company. We use artificial intelligence paired on existing security cameras to detect brandished firearms in any type of environment. So our goal is to stop mass shootings before they happen. Typically, you see a gun is out for anywhere between 30 seconds and 30 minutes before an active shooting happens. And we're trying to capture it during that time, provide situational awareness back to law enforcement, and end the scourge that is gun violence here in America.
Absolutely. A noble effort. I'm sure we'd love to be able to turn on the TV and not see any more tragedies in America's schools, churches, places of worship, and things of that nature. So keep after it, man. You're doing good stuff.
Absolutely.
Hey, on behalf of RecruitMilitary and the folks that joined us today, thanks for taking the time to be with us. I really appreciate it, JT.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and happy to connect with anyone outside of this. I saw there's a lot of questions in the comment section we didn't get to, but feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. We have a chat.
Awesome. Thanks, JT. And for the folks out there, if you haven't already done so, do yourself a solid and use the link armvets.com/live. That'll take you to our website where you'll find over 300,000 job opportunities from tens of thousands of employers around the world and around the corner. You'll find information about our job fairs being held monthly, nationwide, in person, and virtual, and a library of content, videos, articles, and information, all designed to help veterans, transitioning service members, and mil-spouses find meaningful employment. This has been Lucas Connolly for Recruit Military Live. Until next time, good luck and God.